Board members, welcome back. Let's go ahead and jump right into agenda item 6. This is the Standards and Assessment Committee report, and we will turn time over to Chair Earl.
Thank you. We have two items before us today. The first one is it's the alternate science standards revision. And the motion before the board is that the board approve the DLM alternate achievement science standards revision.
Thank you. The motion restated is that the board approve the DLM alternate achievement science standards. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote. Member Green?
Member Green is a yes.
Thank you.
Where's Joe at? I don't know if he had questions on this next one, so. Okay, we're ready. Member Hall? Okay.
That passes 13 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 absent. That the member being opposed was from Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Just see if you had a question. It's 3:25. Yes, so the motion before the board is that, so this is the public education exit and engagement surveys. And the motion before the board is that the board approve R277325 public education exit and engagement surveys, draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-325 public education exit public education exit and engagement surveys, draft 1 on second and final reading. I've got Member Bogus and Member Carey. Member Bogus.
Thank you. So I don't know if this is, but through you, Chair, I think it might be to Director Rasmussen. I'm just wondering why the definition of educator is so narrow. I think we miss about 40% of our educators with this definition.
I'm not sure if that, let me ask this, was to the committee, was this definition changed?
No.
Okay, so this is a question about a previous one. So Sybil will see if she can find a staff member who can respond to that. Until then, if you don't mind, we'll move over to Member Carey.
That's fine.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if there's someone who could answer this question, but I heard that our response rate to the survey is extremely low. And I just wanted to know, one, if we know what that response rate is, and once I hear that response, I'd have a follow-up question, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if Director Rasmussen can answer that question about the response rate on the survey. Do you have answers to that one? Okay. We're dancing with staff here. If we can get...
I want Ben to answer it, whether it's his item or not. No, go.
Yeah, good luck. Let's jump back to Member Bogus's question directed to you, Ben, if that's okay, and then we'll see if we can get Member Carey's answer.
Thank
Member
you.
Bogus.
What was the question?
Sorry, thank you. So the question, Director Rasmussen, was, is there a specific reason that the definition of educator is so hyper-focused and narrow?
You're talking about 325?
Yes.
I did not draft that rule, so I'm not sure why they drafted it the way they did. Who drafted that, please? 325?
It looks like you have some help.
Well, you can answer. Okay, I'm being shown an answer. There are general education teacher, special education teacher, several different things. I think it's just because there's a lot of subsets that they needed to include.
Okay.
I haven't seen the definition, so I'm trying to catch up here.
Could we pull up the
that.
definition for him? Because as this reads, it does not seem to include any high school teacher because they're not gen ed teachers. A school-based specialist is different from an itinerant specialist. And then nowhere in here do we address coaches. We don't address some of the people who who have a broader experience. It seems to be hyper narrow to me.
Well, I think a high school teacher would fall under the under general education classroom teacher. I think that's what that's trying to encompass is any teacher in the classroom.
Okay, so
What
then,
were the others you were asking about?
well, a school-based specialist is different from an itinerant specialist. So with this definition, I would not be able to fill out this survey because then I'm an itinerant specialist.
Well-
Would you not be considered a general education classroom teacher?
No,
Oh, I think you would fall under school-based specialist, even though you go to different schools. I mean, I don't think that they're reading this as strictly as you are, as narrowly as you are.
okay, so then my question would be, could they? Because I believe some are.
I mean, is there any indication they're trying to read this to exclude people from taking the survey? I don't see why they would.
I think I think there's evidence that it is possibly happening, yes.
I mean, the board can make that as specific as they feel it needs to be, or you could just say all staff. I'm not sure what the parameters are of who takes the survey in that. Like I said, I didn't draft this, but if the board has a lot of flexibility as to how they want to handle that.
Yeah, Ben, can I ask just a quick follow-up question on top of this? Is educator defined in R277-100?
It's defined in code. I
Okay,
think is what we usually use for licensing and that. I'm not sure why they chose to define educators separately here.
thank you.
Well, and I guess
Vargas,
that
follow-up
kind
or-
of brings us to the climax of my question. To me, this narrows the definition that we have in other spaces, and I just don't understand the why. Thank you, Director Rasmussen, for trying. I do appreciate it.
Let's go to member Carey's question and hopefully we have a staff member who could answer that. Will you restate that, please?
Sure. First, I just want to thank the staff who were assigned on this project. That's Jennifer Wadsworth. I believe is it Etiana, Coley Mells, and Willie Chen. I had sent a request for information, and what I got back not only answered all my questions, but answered questions I didn't know that I had. So thank you for the thoroughness of that response. But one of the things that came up in the data you prepared, in 2023, 2024, you indicated that about 12% of our educator workforce left their positions. And in 2024, 2025, 13% of the workforce, our educator workforce, left their position. But then when we look at how many actually completed the survey, it's substantially lower, like 12%, 14%. And I just wanted to know why you think that is, and as a board, is there anything we can do to get more educators to respond to the survey because of the good data that it provides? And I would just ask anyone who can answer that question, provide the answer.
Well, we'll have Superintendent Hart start, and then if another staff member wants to rescue, then we'll see what happens.
I had the same thought when I saw the data, and so I think and I saw it at the same time you did. I think we need to talk to our superintendents and talk to the people that talk through the process by which the survey gets pushed out and when it gets pushed out. At the end of the day, you can't, somebody's left a job, you can't force them to take a survey. But at the same time, if we could provide it earlier, if we could talk to HR directors about making it part of an exit package, if we could, there are things we need to brainstorm in the process because I noticed the same thing you did. I don't know if staff maybe were already ahead of me and had some other answers on that, but there are partners, meaning the superintendents, the HR directors, and teachers themselves to maybe find out what we can do to get additional information.
Thank you. Member Lear?
I maybe can add a little bit of information. I remember this bill, and it was sponsored by Representative Moss a few years ago, that put this in motion. And if this is a continuation, maybe it was as long as 5 years ago. But I remember saying to her at the time, this is a lot of people who are leaving the job are leaving the job because they're engaged in something else, they're disinterested, sometimes they're mad, sometimes they're frustrated, but you have the worst possible combination of circumstances to ask people, oh, by the way, we've got this survey for you as the door hits your backside as you go out the door. And there's not an incentive to answer these questions. So I think the one thing that you mentioned, Molly, that superintendent, that I think might be a good idea is maybe to get the HR directors involved, make sure they're aware of this, and we can't like hold a paycheck hostage, or not that we could anyway, but an LEA is not going to do that. So if they could maybe get invested in it a little earlier and be convinced of the value of the information, that might be a way to start. But right from the inception of this rule, I remember talking to Representative Moss saying, we're not going to get much feedback because these people their heads are already out the door. So it's kind of the nature of the business is what I'm, unfortunately, it turned out the way I thought.
Okay, I've got Member Earl, Member Bogus, and then Member Green. And did you want to, I've got Dr. Voorhees. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Leah Voorhees, Deputy Superintendent of Student Achievement. To the question of increasing all of those responses are very helpful. Another one to add is that when the survey link is emailed, if it's emailed to the email in Cactus, and if the educator has already left, they're not going to get that email, right? But Etiana also provided some interesting information that I thought you would appreciate about this year. So 146 responses have already been received. 86% of the educators who have left this year have participated in the new survey model, which she did provide information about, but I'm not sure all the board members have, that some of these questions came up when you discussed the survey last year, and you did recommend some processes to improve the response rate. And it appears that those processes are helping, because 86% is a much better response rate. Almost 90% of those who have responded in full, which is a huge increase. So the work that you did last year has actually made a difference. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that feedback. That's great. Okay, Member Earl, Member Bogus, and then Member Green. Member Earl.
Yeah. Okay. I guess if you go to R277100, it gives a definition of educator there. If someone wanted to make that motion, we could put that in. I don't know if it becomes more exclusive or more inclusive. I don't know either way. I'm just kind of drawing that attention that it references code. It's an individual licensed under 53E6-201 who meets the requirements of board rule, if necessary. It feels like it does encompass that the way it's written. And it says for the purpose of this rule, right? It's not meant to. So anyways, just throwing that in there.
Member Bogus.
Thank you. So I have that code actually up here, and the definition in code is a person who holds a license, a teacher, a counselor, an administrator, librarian, or other person required under the rules of the state board to hold a license. So that definition is far more expensive than this definition. So with that, I would just move to strike lines 20 through 25, and then we revert to the definition in R277-100 throughout, and I think that makes the simplest approach to this.
So let's make sure we get, there's a motion presented to the body here. And Member Bogus, let's make sure we get that correct. You want to strike lines 20 through,
Lines 20 through 20. Oh, I apologize. I should have had my glasses on. Lines 20 through 25.
keep an eye on the screen, will you? And once we have that, we'll seek a second and go from there.
And so I noticed that our staff has put up and to replace it with, if I could ask a question of Superintendent Nui, if we don't replace it with anything, doesn't it revert to our 277-100? Then I think that's the simplest way to do it, is just to remove the definition, which would default to 100. And
So
then
you
it's a
just wanna-
broader,
You just want to strike it.
yeah, and then
That's
we.
your motion.
Mhm,
Okay,
yes.
so the motion is that the board strike the definition of educator from R277-325. Is there a second? There's a second. Back to you, Member Bogus.
I think we've covered it. I don't know that I have any more to say. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board strike the definition of educator from R277-325. Not seeing, oh, Vice Chair Wood, go ahead.
Sorry, I do have a question in terms of the people needing to take this survey. Just to clarify, are all of the people that it lists for the purpose of this rule, does that 100 encompass all of these people? Okay, thank you.
Member Bogus.
So the answer to your question is yes, and a bunch of others. So it would expand out to librarians, itinerant specialists, coaches, maybe even, because the definition is anyone who's required by this board to hold a license. So then you're even in the space of social workers, counselors. Counselors are not on this list, some of those things. And so it's a yes and others that I believe should have access to the survey.
Follow up.
Because it's a public education exit survey, it's not a teacher exit, so it's a
Yes.
public education. So you're saying it will encompass and give us greater information of why people are leaving the system as a whole.
I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
If I'm wrong, somebody should make me smarter, but that is what I believe this will do, yeah.
Member Earl.
I guess the question is, are all school-based administrators licensed? I mean, that's the one caveat that I was thinking may not encompass, right? Because they can technically be hired by charters without being licensed to be an administrator, as well as they can technically be hired. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Districts are required in code to have administrators be licensed and charters are not.
So now we would be maybe eliminating.
Right,
That's my
there's-
point. Is it and
There's
yeah.
some residual
so-
effects, yes.
Yeah. Would we be getting everyone or not in this case?
Okay, so the motion then is that the board strike the definition of educator from R277-325. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Green,
Yes.
thank you. That motion passes, 12 in favor, 3 opposed, those in opposition being from Member Wood, Member Earl, and Member Hymas. Okay, so the motion before us then is that the board approve R277-325 as amended, or as amended, Public Education Exit and Engagement Surveys Draft 1 as amended, I'll get there, on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering if we look, and maybe I missed it because again, my notes didn't come through on the thing. I probably forgot to save it. But lines 42 through 44 are struck, and it says, if an LEA administers the climate survey every other year. Why are we not administering this every year? Because I keep seeing this language every other year.
I'll speak to, and correct me, staff, if I'm wrong. I know that the board has gone over and beaten the tar out of the climate survey. And we're trying to reduce the number of surveys, and I don't think it's mandated that the climate survey is done every year.
But this isn't the climate survey. I apologize. I think this is the exit survey.
Well, you asked about the climate survey, and I gave you the climate survey answer.
I apologize that I misspoke. My notes are not on this one. They were on the other one, okay, Chair Hymas. But my question is, if we aren't having people fill this out every year, what is the rationale for doing it biannually?
Elise, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So there's two surveys that are part of this rule. There's the educator survey, which that one is administered every other year, like Chair Jaime said, to reduce the amount of surveys and things that we're sending out to our educators. The exit survey, however, is sent out whenever an educator leaves the profession. So regardless of which year it is, they'll get the exit survey.
That's all I needed to know.
Thank you. Member Earl?
No.
Okay. So the motion is that the board approve R277-325, Public Education Exit and Engagement Surveys, Draft 1, as amended on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Green?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair Earl.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes standards and assessment.